Welcome to This Story is Mine. In this episode I get to meet with Sasha, who is a young, hard-working mom and a very talented musician. Sasha's journey starts with quite a grim future, however. I think you'll find her story fascinating, interesting, and might just put a big smile on your face. Please enjoy This Story is Mine with Sasha.
Hi, my name is Sasha and this story is mine. First 2 years of my life were really bumpy. Actually, they weren't very nice at all. So I was born to alcoholic parents. My birth mother was 19 when she had me, and already had a child that she couldn't look after. And my birth father was much older and had 7 other children, 3 of which he was trying to look after at the time that I made an appearance. I was eventually being looked after by my 13-year-old aunt pretty much full time, which is insane thinking about it, especially from having a child myself, like a newborn baby myself, and how much effort it is as an adult to keep that small little thing alive. I can't imagine like what she must have gone through. So yeah, that went on for a while, and eventually social services sort of got wind of it, and I think neighbours reported it and took us both away. So she got put into a care home and I got put into foster care. My first foster care home wasn't very nice, and she basically essentially neglected me, and I apparently, according to my case file, I pulled out all of my hair, I guess out of like frustration, because I was just left in a cot for days on end. I think she was really good at like babies, but not good with a toddler. Like, you can't keep a toddler in a cot for days on end. You have to keep them, stimulated and playing and stuff. So I eventually got taken away from her as well. And then I was placed in another foster family, which was like an emergency placement. They were actually trying to retire. And they were the most like lovely couple ever. And I think that's where my memories properly start with them, because they sort of let me be a actual child. Yeah, so after getting fostered by that lovely couple, at that point, my adoptive parents were they're going through the adoptive process, but obviously it's so huge and it takes months and months. And we eventually got together and I moved into their house and had a really lovely childhood from then. Yeah, I was really lucky. Like the rest of my siblings stayed in foster care and care homes and stuff, so I was very much the lucky one. And also at that point when I got adopted, I think it'd been a few months, and my parents got a phone call and it was social services saying, oh, the birth mother's pregnant again, and would you like another one? And they were like, well, of course. So I think for my mum, who'd struggled to have children, I obviously came to them and I was like 2.5. She'd never had that baby before, so it meant that she got her baby. So it's really nice. So I got to grow up with my biological brother as well, which is lovely, in the Mean Valley, and that's where we grew up. It's gorgeous, honestly. I couldn't have asked for a better childhood home.
It's proper countryside, isn't it?
Proper country bumpkin, yeah, absolutely. We grew up with a beautiful golden retriever called Archie, who was my absolute world, and so for me it was like just fairy tale, and I was just super grateful. So I went to Meanstoke School, still a local infant school, and it was gorgeous. It's like really tiny classes.
Everybody knew everybody.
Everyone, exactly, and all the mums know each other. And actually, like I've still got friends from that school now to today, and we all had like lovely friendships and lovely memories there. Moved at a weird time in the middle of year 2. Basically, I'm really rubbish at maths, and my parents wanted to send me to a private school just to kind of sort my maths out. And so I went from there to a all-girls school in Fareham called Wickham House, which doesn't exist anymore. And then I went from Wickham House to Portsmouth Grammar, which is a huge change because Portsmouth Grammar is huge. And actually mostly boys, really. And there's boys, and I didn't really know boys, so I just kept my head down, I think, for the first couple of years. I was like, what is that? And I didn't really understand their banter or stuff like that. I just didn't really know. I had no interest in them whatsoever until about year 9. And then I was like, oh, I've discovered boys. They're not actually so bad. Yeah, sent to lots of grammar. I was really well behaved, I think, for the first 3 years. And then when it hit the sort of GCSE years, my interests went elsewhere and not my coursework and my studying at all. All I wanted to do was play guitar in my room. And that's all I did do. Yeah, I just had no interest in anything that wasn't music. So I didn't really apply myself to anything. I think I was about 14 and I was watching, it's when Taylor Swift was just coming up. And it was this beautiful blonde girl playing guitar. And I was like, wow, that's just mind blown. And it just became a bit of a hyper focus for me. So I'd go on YouTube and I'd just watch people playing covers and stuff. And I said to my dad, like, I know that I was playing piano up until this point. I know that we're playing piano at the moment, but can we get a guitar? Because I'd really like to learn. I think at the time he was like, well, no, because it'll just be a 5-minute thing and then you'll give it up. And this is a waste of time and money. But eventually he did get me a guitar. And it just became an absolute obsession. So I think when other kids were going out and not doing their work because they were hanging out with friends, I was not doing my work because I was hyper-focusing on trying to learn guitar. Yeah, I got massively into writing, and it's a really good outlet, especially when you're going through those difficult teenage years.
And there are some really dark moments as a teenager.
Huge dark moments, and I had some really like dark thoughts when I was a teenager, and I got into I was about 16. I think I can say that. I was depressed because I was just so confused. Like I thought I was like these two different people. I had this identity crisis. I didn't really know where I fitted in because I knew that I'd had this background that wasn't where I was then. And then I think quite a lot of adopted children feel like this, and you kind of feel just not worthy of it. So yeah, I was really quite confused with it. I kind of thought that I didn't really deserve it. And so writing was such a good outlet for me. And I wasn't really necessarily writing about that. I was probably writing about some boyfriend that I had at the time or whatever. But such a good outlet. It's like a therapy thing. Round about that time as well, I started to go to like local gigs. And there was a band called England Road, and I knew the bassist because I'd gone to Stoke with him. And so I used to go to a couple of those gigs, and I got chatting to the guys, and I ended up writing with them, and we were like hanging out, writing and stuff. And I was sitting in the guitarist's bedroom one day, and we just finished this song, and his dad comes in and goes, "Sasha, I've got you a gig." And I was like, "What? Me?" And he was like, yeah, I got a gig. It's in a couple of weeks' time. You're going to support the boys. And I was just there like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't think I'm ready. But they were so lovely. They very much like pushed me to do it. And Kieran, the guitarist, came up on stage with me. And for my first one, which was fine. And then when he left, I remember being like, what do I do now? And I was terrified. Yeah, from then onwards, I sort of just started gigging. So a promoter called Nick Courtney that would put these music nights on at this pub in Portsmouth, and I started doing it every week, and it just became a part of me, part of what I was doing.
And was this performing your own music or covers, or
both? Yeah, it was both. My dad always jokes that I used to play at this really sort of rough pub in Portsmouth on a Friday night after sort of all the builders are there. They've just got back from work and they're having a pint at the pub. The last thing they want to hear is this 16-year-old girl singing Birdie or something. They just don't want to hear it. But yeah, I got through my GCSEs. I didn't really care about my results at all, if I'm really honest. Results day at PGS is like it's such a big thing. And I remember running in my welly boots and my rucksack, so I was going to Reading Festival later on that day, grabbing my results, and the teacher's been like, "You're going to stay then?" I was like, "Nope." And I just ran off again. And that's the last time I really saw my teachers. I just didn't care. I was a terrible student, but my mind was, I just wanted to get to the festival. And I sort of remember opening my results up on the train, being like, oh, okay, good, right, I can get into college then, it's fine. Like, Ed Sheeran. What? Was my first concert, yeah. So my boyfriend at the time, I was 15, took me for my birthday. And I remember standing there, and just watching him. And he wasn't actually that big then. And he had this little guitar, and behind him, this giant paw print. And Passenger, he wasn't very big at that time, he supported him. I remember coming back on that train, just like buzzing, just thinking that was the best thing. I was really lucky. We had a really privileged childhood. My parents would always take us on 2 holidays a year. Our favourite one would be, we went to Greece every year. to the same island.
Which one?
At Aggie Street. Yeah, so it's not many people have heard of it. It's really, really teeny tiny. And because it's not like really touristy, as kids, we had so much freedom just to sort of explore and just run around and just do what we wanted to do, which obviously you wouldn't get around, you can't do that around here really, because everyone on the island knew each other. And yeah, we went every summer for years. We went for 6 weeks at one point, we'd go for 4 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Just loved it. We befriended another couple of groups of families that were some British, some Greek. And we always sort of made sure we went at the same time. So we had like kids' friends and adult friends. And so I must have been about, 8 or 9, 10, 11, kind of that kind of period. And me and Denai, which is my Greek friend, used to go to the karaoke bar. And
So you were already singing then?
well, I think that was the first time that I was like, oh, I think I can sing. I think so. I think I can.
Tell me on this Greek island that you were singing ABBA songs.
I actually was. But I wasn't aware of like ABBA at that point to me. I was too little. But yeah, it was just a popular. There's lots of. Actually, I remember singing lots of Christina Aguilera songs.
That's a good start.
Yeah, but it was like, I think it was a song called Genie in a Bottle, and I was singing it, and it's not until I listen to the lyrics back now of how awfully filthy that is. And to have this 8-year-old girl singing it, it's so wrong. My mum's dad had passed away before we'd got to see them, got to be with them. And I had my mum's mum until we were about 7. We were very close with her. She's a really beautiful person. Somebody once told me that you could write a musical about her because she's just one of those beautiful, soft souls that just loves animals and is very kind and nurturing. And my mum is definitely a reflection of that as well. So she's sort of her mirror. I think they're quite similar. So we had her until I was about 7, and then she passed away. And then my dad's mum was in a care home because she had Alzheimer's as a child. So I don't really remember much of her. We used to call her Granny in the chair. I don't really think she was that aware of us, which is really sad. And then when she passed away, I don't think it really affected me much because I just didn't know her. Yeah. And then I had my granddad in Cornwall, which is my dad's dad, who we spent a lot of time with, and we'd spend a lot of our holidays in Cornwall seeing him. He was very old-fashioned, quite strict actually. Again, sort of, my dad's a bit like that as well. Yeah. So 16 leaving school. So at that point, you have to choose like your options for A-levels and stuff like that. And I'd said to my dad, I don't think I want to do the conventional A-level kind of thing. I don't really want to do it. I just want to do music. Shock. And so we looked around Peter Simmons and South Downs, and South Downs had this amazing music programme. So you've got the theatre, and then you've got like the rooms with all the equipment and stuff in as well. So I was just blown away by that. And it's BTEC, but it was like a music business, performance, sort of culture, like world music, all of this. So I was just so drawn to it. I think my dad gave me that sort of like, okay, but I'm a little bit, can't lie, I'm a bit disappointed. So especially because I had such an academic education before that, but then I wasn't happy in that. It's not my scene. I could do it, but I wasn't happy in it. So the compromise was I'd go to South Downs and I'd do my English A-level and I'd do my music BTEC at the same time. And that counts as like 4 A-levels. But yeah, and that music course was incredible. So much fun. It was so different for me, I think. And it was difficult for me transitioning from, I've been privately educated most of my life up until this point. And then I was at South Downs, and the people were so different to the people that I was used to. And it took me a while to sort of get to know them, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then to know me. But then when I did, like, we just had these amazing friendships. We'd be in different bands, and you do get really close. And I ended up, the band that I was in, we ended up actually doing gigs elsewhere, and we did it was like a covers function band. And we became really close. Just loved it. Just such a different experience. And the way that the lecturers are just incredible because they're also musicians too. Like sometimes we'll get to music business class and there'll be a note stuck on the door with sellotape, like someone's gone on tour, and we'd just be there like, great, I can go hang out in the smoking shelter now, or we can just do nothing. South does this thing where you, in your final year, you'll do a tour. So we did a little tour on the Isle of Wight, which is just amazing. So you just go around. The different gigs that you get is insane. So we'd do we'd gig at a special needs school at one point. And then that evening, I was gigging at a pub. There was a stag do that came in, and then at one point, the groom was like lying on the floor, like duct taped to my feet when I was trying to sing and stuff like that. So huge like contrast in like where you're performing. But so good for confidence, considering like most of those people are going to go out into either the session world or the teaching world or something like that. And so you need that raw experience before you set off. I had one where I was playing a gig in Portsmouth, and I had a guitarist with me, and we were singing, and I can't even listen to this song properly now without thinking it's like PTSD, I swear. It was Under the Bridge by the Chili's. And there was a really, really drunk man in front of me, and he was singing along really loudly, but the completely different part, which completely threw me off. And then I forgot, I just had a mind blank in front of all these like rowdy, drunk people. And like he's shouting at me to get off, like, oh, you're rubbish, your guitarist could do better than you, stuff like that.
So you're 18, you graduated from?
Yeah, finished college. 18, finished college. Where am I? And I'm at a bit of a crossroads as to what I was going to do. I was going to follow my boyfriend up to uni at the time, but that relationship sort of was getting a bit bumpy. I think as quite a lot of teenage relationships do at that age, yeah. And then we broke up when I was about 18, and I was a bit like, I don't really know what to do now. So I was just sort of working in a pub, doing gigs. In fact, actually at that point, I was just being a bit of a rubbish teenager, I think, actually. I was just doing what things that most teenagers do, just hanging out too late and drinking too much and just making sort of not great life choices and sort of bumming about. And my dad was like, come on, like, let's do something. You've got to do something. And then, yeah, in the August, the boyfriend that I'd broken up with the previous year was killed in a car accident. Yeah. And that was the first, like, a wobble in terms of, like, for me, it was like, well, my friends aren't going to last forever. And that was that first realisation that, oh my God, we are so fragile. Because I think when you're a child and you're a teenager, you just assume that you just think you're invincible, don't you? You think your friends are invincible. You can't imagine something like that happening. And that just brought me straight down to earth. And I actually changed pretty much overnight because of that. I carried on working at the pub, but I was kind of looking at going to ACM to do music there, to study. When at that point, I met my ex-husband, who's the father of my daughter. So I'm 19 now, and he's a lot older. Yeah, he's a lot older. He's seen a video of me singing online, and he said, like, he's dropped me a message saying, oh, hi, like your song, have you got any gigs coming up? And I was like, oh, I do actually. So he came along to my gig, and yeah, I didn't really think of anything of it at the time. I just thought it was really cool that this musician in a leather jacket that was a lot older than me. Yeah, he's a drummer. Yeah, he's a session drummer. So he's worked with lots of cool people. So I just thought it was so cool that he was coming to see me. But I didn't really think anything of it until one day he was like, oh, do you want to come to James Bay with me? It'd be really good for you to meet some people. And because it was so like business-like, I didn't realise it was a date at all. Actually, on that date, I remember just being like, I've got to be cool. And, you know, you spend ages trying to figure out what to wear, and you've got your friends on the phone, like, good luck, you know, all of this. And I spent ages getting ready, and I thought I looked really good. I didn't, but I thought I looked really, really good. And I was walking through Southsea, and this bird pooed. And when I say it's all over my face, all over my hands, like everything. And I was just covered in it on this date with this drummer that I thought was really cool. I remember going into the pub, my friend being like, I called my friend to the toilets, and I was like, right, I can either wash my eyebrows off, because that was the time you drew them on, or I've got bird poo on my eyebrows for the remainder of this date. And I chose the bird poo on the eyebrows over the non-eyebrows. So anyway, after that, I was like, oh, he's not going to text me again. If he does, he's probably the one. So and the rest is history there. And then that's when I moved to Warsash actually when I was 20, to move in with him. And we lived in a little flat in Warsash, which is really sweet, really lovely. Had a view of the sea, which was very nice, a little balcony.
Wow.
Yeah, very lucky. And we made friends with our neighbours as well. There's a lovely couple called Ian and Kate who we just adored. They were so much fun, and they were slightly older than us and had a daughter of themselves, and they were just brilliant to sort of hang out with. And you kind of feel grown up having grown up friends, don't you? Especially when you're 20. Yeah, so where was I working at that point? I was a legal receptionist. Stopped that. And then I was working, when we lived in Warsash, I was working at Lloyd's Bank actually, on the phones. I've never hated a job more than that job. It was just so miserable. I was working 9 to 7 on the phone. My boyfriend at the time was touring with Coldplay.
What?
Yeah, living his best life. And I was working 9 to 7 in a call centre, and he'd be like, "Hey, how's your day?" And I'd be like, it's 8:30 a.m. and someone's already called me a what's it? Like, do you know what I mean? So our lives were completely completely different. Bizarre, bonkers, right? So I was working there, and I think I just had enough at one point, and I'd seen a job advert for recruitment in Whiteley, and I was like, "Oh, do you know what, sod it, I need to just get out." So I applied for it. I didn't get the job that I was going for. I was actually going for a consultant role, but they sort of looked at me in the interview and they were like, "You're not a salesy person, so we're going to pop you." Yeah, exactly. We're going to put you sort of in the more resource client solutions area. And when I was there, I met these amazing group of women. I call them my grown-up friends. I've got my childhood friends from school, and then I've got my grown-up friends that I met when I was 20. And there was a group of 4 of us on the team. Well, 6 of us on the team. And the 4 of us now are still such a close-knit friendship group. I think we bonded over the fact that we had this dreadful boss, and she was just so god-awful and so horrible that I think it brought us all really close together. But yeah, so that was great. So I loved working there. When I was working there, I fell pregnant with my daughter, which was a bit of a happy surprise because I was really young. I was only 22. And I remember pulling my friends into a room being like, "I'm pregnant." And then it's that age where it's like, do I celebrate or is that, oh God, I don't know how to react. And they were engaging. My friend Emily was like, "Oh," and as if it was really bad. And I was like, no, it's fine. It's good. We're good. We're happy. She was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Yeah. So yeah, I had my daughter. I went back for a few keep in touch days at work. And I was like, my heart's not in it anymore. I've changed. And the hours that I'd have to do would mean I wouldn't really see my daughter. And I was like, I'm not really into this. And I'd really wanted to work with kids for a really long time. So I decided to hand in my notice. And at that point, I found a sort of agency worker job at a special needs school in Southampton. I really didn't know what to expect. So I was just an agency worker. I popped in, really didn't know what to expect. On my first day, I was sitting there with a child who was sitting on my lap, very, very disabled, very autistic. He was just stroking my hair and it was all lovely. It was a really lovely, calming experience. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, he just full on slapped me around the face. And I was like, "Oh, okay, right, that brought me down to earth. This is what it's like here." And I was there for a few months and I absolutely loved it. It was so rewarding. And that's what I was after. I wanted something that was rewarding and that I could get home by 4 o'clock to see my baby. It's really difficult leaving your kids for the first time with grandparents when you go to work. I remember leaving her in the car with her granddad. I remember walking into school crying, you feel like you've been ripped apart. Because when you have children, it's like watching your heart exist outside your body. And that's really difficult. I remember thinking, I don't know how I can get through this, But I think because it was such a busy environment, and the kids were so amazing, challenging, but amazing. And then the staff as well, just incredible people. My brother is autistic, and so I've literally grown up in that circle because of who my parents would hang out with, because they would hang out with parents that had other autistic children too. So I was very, very aware of it anyway. I'd grown up with it. But I think I was actually quite naive looking back on it, because I thought, well, I've grown up with it, so I'm going to be fine. I'm sure I've seen most of it. No.
Such a massive spectrum, isn't it?
It's so huge, and every child is different. And what might work one day won't work the next day. There's no consistency with it. There's no manual. It's just go with the flow, see what the vibe is. Sometimes you're going to have a great day. Sometimes you're going to get your head thumped. But do you know what I mean? It's all good and it's fine. At that point, obviously I was just an agency worker and I really needed a permanent job. So there was a job that came up at junior school, just as an LSA position. I was quite nervous moving from special needs to mainstream, because a lot of my colleagues said, you know, we've tried that before and we've had to come back because it's just so different. I had this interview and I couldn't get through the school gate because it sounds ridiculous. I made myself late for the interview because where Springwell is so like locked up and you need like fobs and everything because of the kids. I didn't realise that the school gate was just a gate that you could open. I was looking for like a fob and stuff like that, so I made myself late. Managed to get in and I figured out how to work the gate. And I remember walking in, and because I was late, they'd already sat the children down. They were waiting for me. And I had to do this like interactive reading with them. And I read the scene from Matilda and Bruce Bogtrotter's scene, that big chocolate cake. And it was so different to what I was used to. But I loved it so much because I could really engage with the children, because these were children that were verbal and didn't have those needs that I was used to working with. And so I got them doing like different actions, and it was like we were sort of vibing with each other. And I was like, wow, what's everyone talking about?
You've got an audience.
This is fun. Exactly. I'm having the best time ever. They're having a good time. I think they're having a good time. I'm having a great time. So I just had so much fun. And that's the funnest job interview I've ever had, to be honest. My teacher at the time, and she's my colleague now, when I walked in, she was like, you're the last one and it's Friday afternoon, so good luck. And I was like, oh no, because obviously they're tired. Yeah. But anyway, it was great. And I got the job. And I started in the September. Hopefully I'm going to look at going to university at the same time as working, because I'm a creature of habit. So there are a few university courses that you can do whilst working in a school. You do like 4 days a week in the school and then 1 day at uni. So I'm going to look at doing that, and then hopefully start the process to become a teacher.
Sasha, I really appreciate you taking time out and being so candid and honest and open.
Yeah, no
in
worries.
this. It's been really, really good. I've enjoyed it. I hope
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to do it. It's really nice to be part of something like that.
Seriously good story.